I'm Christy Hemingway, host of Ed Curation, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
It's the High Tech Podcast. This is one of the hosts of the High Tech Podcast that you're listening to right now. It's a podcast, and here we are, and we are great. That was my intro.
That was so unhinged. And we are great.
Anyway, if you've not listened to us before, my name is Josh Schwartz. I'm one of the co-hosts of the High Tech Podcast, and that other voice, his name is Will. Yep, there you go.
I'm always waiting for you when you do that you're gonna be like, Bob. You're just gonna like say this, and this is whatever. Jorge.
This is Frankenstein. He is I don't. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, we're at 118 episodes. We still haven't figured out an intro. You know, I feel like this is the thing.
This is the thing. This is the thing.
The thing is just
this messy, chaotic.
The new intro is me just coming in unhinged.
How weird can we make it?
New game. Okay, you just write down random words in the show notes, and I will just like spout them off as we enter into the episode.
Spoiler alert. This is not the weirdest that this is going to get this episode.
Absolutely
we had
not. This isn't even the weirdest it's gotten on the High Tech Podcast. Let's be real.
That's fair.
Absolutely. We're the High Tech Podcast. We love talking about ed tech and all those fun things. And that's what we're going to be doing again this week. But we are going to be doing something a little bit different this week. We're going to be escaping.
Gotta get away with murder. Isn't that a lyric?
What are you singing right now?
I thought I had a lyric coming to my mind. I just started speaking.
It's clear that that's what happened. You thought there was a lyric. For a second I thought you were going into like a Pokemon song, and then I was like gotta catch 'em all,
Pokemon.
Oh, I gotta get rid of that.
Got a song.
Sorry, some unknown song from not a show that's copyrighted. Anyway,
so nondescript.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to be talking about escape rooms this week. I know you thought that has nothing to do with education, and you're wrong. It does. So Will and I have done escape rooms a bunch, but we have never actually led one in an educational sense. But we're going to be joined this week by Sophie Youngs. There's an S, folks, which I think is hilarious. Like, that's great. Sophie Youngs, she is another connection we had through Steve Martinez, who was from Cami. He was on one of our episodes, 113.
13.
Yeah, I did that off the top of my head. I didn't even look at the database.
Wow, Josh. I didn't know you could do that.
That was a whole 5 episodes ago. That should be impressive. I remembered that.
Yeah, probably like a month and a half ago at least.
Yeah, I know. Steve is awesome. He is joined us from Cami and talked about flipped classrooms episode 113. Through that connection, we found Sophie, who is also a huge nerd. It's like bred into Cami.
I love it. Or educators, like it's both Cami and educators. Like, I'm a nerd, you're a nerd.
I've met some educators that are not as nerdy as we are. They're mostly PE teachers, but they're business professors. Anyway, I'm getting a little spicy.
Spicy.
But Sophie, I forget how we connected with Sophie. Did you?
Steve
connected with us?
Was like, oh, by the way, you should talk to Sophie. Blah 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 blah.
Okay, and that was how the connection worked out. Yeah.
Hats off to you, Steve. Thank you.
Remember, I mentioned in this episode later when we're talking to Sophie that like Will, the networking ninja of the High Tech Podcast, is the one who usually finds the guests, and I do mention this in the interview with Sophie a little bit, but usually the way it goes down is like, one, either I don't know we're doing a guest, I'll be totally honest, it just shows up on our schedule, or Will be like, I found this person who wants to talk about this, should we talk about this? And there's only been 2 cases where I've basically, one, I think you felt confident enough to book them without even confirming with me, and two that was like an immediate yes, and one of them was Sophie, which is this awesome conversation about digital escape rooms in education. Sophie has a ton of experience doing these, and I'm excited to hear what she has to say and talk through it. I've already heard it. I don't know. I've already alluded to that, but
we're done with the interview, but we're also excited to have the interview happen for you. Like we're excited
for you to join us in the future where we are now. Yeah, that's not confusing at all, is it? That's
anybody ever seen Spaceballs? Because this is a moment from Spaceballs. They're looking at themselves.
I've seen Spaceballs and been reminded that my last name sounds like the thing from Spaceballs for my entire life.
But people are wrong.
It's whatever. It's fine. But Sophie has a ton of experience doing it, right? And she taught for many years in a subject that Will and I should never teach, which is math, and did a lot of fun stuff, but really got into digital escape rooms and is a vast resource of knowledge, both on digital escape rooms, some of what Cami has to offer, which we've talked about before in the podcast and love to talk about again. So with that said, I'm going to stop previewing the thing that you're here listening to and want to listen to. So let's jump on over to Sophie Youngs and talk about some digital escape rooms.
Okay, folks, we're very excited. There's already been a couple connections between nerddom and lore and just general geekiness. We're thrilled to have a fellow geek with us in this episode. Sophie Youngs joining us for this episode. Thank you, Sophie, for joining us on this episode. We are excited to hear about a very specific topic, but before we get to the specifics, a little bit of background. Who are you? Where do you come from? What are you doing?
Hello. I say that all the time at work. I am... Hello, and welcome to the Cami Show. That's what I said. That's my intro.
I love it.
A little bit of background about me is like teaching has just sort of been in my blood. My grandmother always volunteered at the local elementary schools to teach the history of the American flag. She even had a couple of versions of the flag to show while she was there, and all dressed up in like the bonnet and poofy dress and all that jazz.
Oh, that's already amazing.
Impressive. For a second, I thought you were going to say different versions of the history. Like you were just like there.
Though she probably would do that. Then my mom was an elementary teacher and is now an instructional coach. So I grew up with my mom as a teacher, and she would sub in my own classes when I was growing up and stuff. So that was always a weird day. And then when I got in college years, while I was pursuing my education degree, actually, I wanted to be like everything. I wanted to be a kindergarten teacher, an art teacher, a PE teacher, a math teacher. I wanted to do it all. But while I was pursuing that, I was a camp counselor for West Virginia 4-H camps all over the state of West Virginia from where I am. And that was actually a summer job. We were called like extension camping instructors, like a real name, and actually got paid to do it. So that was my summer job.
A history of cool job titles.
It's like the beginning of your crazy titles. Yeah.
Before that, I was a barista. So that one's not as cool.
Back then, that was cool. You know,
back it was. And then I was a graduate assistant. I was an undergrad assistant and a graduate assistant at the college that I was going to, in the science department so she was Dr. Deb she taught secondary science and science methods, all the things that you were supposed to learn before you taught elementary science. So that was a really cool time. And then I actually graded some of those assignments as a grad assistant. So that was cool. She actually helped me do my very first tech integration class. Integrated technology into her class was one of her college level classes. So she is the reason why I am where I am. I can say that for sure.
I love that. What was the tech? Out of curiosity, what did you guys integrate?
It was a word cloud, and we used their cell phones to answer a question, and then it automatically populated into a word cloud to see their understanding. It was triggering prior knowledge.
Yep.
So that was really cool, and she's very low tech. I built her e-week sites, so they have like everything's online for a whole week, and I built that site for her so that she could use that. I don't know if she's still using it. That was over 10 years ago, but
she might be using it exactly as you left it.
Exactly as is. That'd be what she would do for sure. And then after graduating and all that jazz, I was a middle school math, science, and technology teacher for 6 years in a variety of different schools all over West Virginia. And then when we settled in an area, I got married, we settled in an area.
Sure. The things that happen in life.
Yeah.
Things, bought a house, I became the technology and curriculum specialist at the district for the secondary schools. And that was the first time I worked at a high school. So that was an adventure. High school teachers are completely different than middle school teachers, which are completely different than elementary school teachers. Like, you just gotta be.
Listener, I'm nodding my head furiously. Yes, I've done a lot of contract training and support for instructors in K-12. I've never taught in K-12. I was not a primary ed or something like that. Like it wasn't my space. I always went into higher education, but then I got into contracting and supporting districts. Man, was the audience different depending on the grade levels you're working with. And then even if you could just get like the science group, that'd be fun. If you just got one group of teachers, right?
Science is one of my favorites. If I could just have science teachers or social studies teachers, they have the right kind of weird that just meshes great with me.
Yes.
Love them.
Right there.
Yes.
That's why Steve and I get along so well, because he was a social studies teacher.
That's true.
Great point. Oh, man. We love Steve.
I can see the promo now. Social studies teachers. We have the right amount of weird, and then it's just a slideshow.
I'm going to pitch that to Netflix.
Yeah, I'll jump right on that. I know that's what they've been waiting for. Yeah.
For sure. But yeah, then I transitioned into, I'm now working at Kami. Kami is an absolutely amazing edtech tool that you guys recently learned is like your Swiss Army knife for education. You can do so many things with it. And I became really passionate about it during COVID and post that. However, I actually used it for the very first time before they did the name change to Kami. They used to be Notable PDF, and I used it to fill out some college paperwork for my grad school. Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize they were Notable. I know that name. I mean, that was a great name change. Like, really good rebranding. like Notable PDF makes me feel like I'm like at IBM in the 80s during computers. Kami feels a lot more modern.
Yes, it was a fantastic pivot. Good job there. Marketing. Lou, you made a good job. But yes, so I used it way back when I was getting ready for graduate school. And just to like fill out some paperwork because I didn't have a printer at home. So I just filled it out and turned it in and it was great. Yeah. So then it was a need. It solved a problem for my teachers. I pushed it out to them. They tried it. They liked it way better than Doc Hub at the time was also like free. But ever since then, Doc Hub is even like increased and is completely different than what it was when it started. But Kami has done the exact same thing. So like so many new things, so many things I wish I had when I was in the classroom, so many things that I have honestly considered maybe I should go back and teach math for a year just to try out all the cool math tools that we have. But then I remember, and then I remember why I left, and I'm like, nah. Nah.
The irony of us being very education-centric people, Josh and I, Josh still in education, me having left. I think sometimes like, what would it take to go back? And it's a very long list, isn't it, Sophie? Like, I don't know if I could go back.
I love working from home. I do. I love it. I love being able, like, my bed's right there.
I have a bed right there.
I can go outside and walk whenever I want to. I can go to the bathroom whenever I want to. I love working from home, and I have the flexibility. My husband's a clinical pharmacist at our local hospital, so his work schedule is wonky and rotates around weird. So I have the ability to go take my kids to school when I need to, and to go to the doctor's appointments and go to after school things, and not have to worry about taking days just because I'm not going to be there for 30 minutes. It's just
1,000%. Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, totally. I do it for a day.
Hey, you get a day.
That was like for listeners not paying attention. If we could edit it in, Will, "Hello Darkness, my old friend" would be a nice moment right there. Like I'm looking up.
Put you in vignette, just like television into
just
your
drop
like.
it in. Yeah, exactly.
No, the Trolls version.
Oh
gosh. Yes, I don't know if I'm going to do that without breaking a copyright. I'll have to think.
It'll be fine. It'll be the video that gets pulled down for 5 seconds. We'll fix it. It'll be great. So Sophie, you're working from home now. Now, Kimmy, so you're still in education, right? So you're interacting with educators and things like that. So walk the listener through a little bit, like what are you doing now at Cami? You know, what does some of that look like for you?
I am the professional learning manager at Cami. I have lots of different things on my plate. I helped interview some of our newer teacher success champions. One just started today. I helped start her off today because our boss was on vacation today. So I helped start her off today. I started the initiative for our professional learning playbook. So as we build materials that we present with, we store them in the playbooks according to the sessions that we have sort of created over the year and a half that I've been at Cami. So if you have a session pop up all of a sudden and you're like, crap, I need to go and prepare for this, you don't have to make anything from scratch. Cami is all about don't make anything from scratch. Use what you already got. So we just transitioned that into our working life as well. So we provide professional learning opportunities, unlimited free training to any teacher at any time, whenever they want to, as many times as they want, virtual.
Wow.
And we're not going to just run out to your house.
In here once a week.
Yeah, you heard it from us, folks. Sophie will come right to your house at any moment. You just gotta.
She loves working from her home, your home,
and our home, everybody's home. You know,
and you get home, and you get home.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Anyways, I'm just a socially awkward person. So I'm bad at transitions. But yeah, so I do that. I'm one of the backup people if they have issues and they need to like have something covered. I come in and back up. I dubbed the Cami Queen crown when I was at my old district, and it just sort of continued to be like I'm the Cami Queen go-to person. I am asked all the questions by the whole team. But I have also started creating copies of me and other coworkers. So I'm starting to see it. I'm noticing it. I am not the only one they go to anymore. They're going to Margie and this new girl. They're going to go to Stephanie, and they're going to this person, and they're going to that person. They're not just coming to me, which opens me up to have a lot more time to do the other things that are on my list of things to do, all the other stuff.
We got a few.
But yeah, so I sort of manage that project of all of our sessions. I listen to our educators of what they want to learn about, whether it is blended learning, flipped learning, universal design, station rotations with Cami, and we then build presentations around that and materials to go with it. My favorite is the tips and tricks one, and I do this entire session in the Very Hungry Caterpillar book.
Okay.
Sounds very childish, but it's so cool because then we really deep dive into this is totally off topic, but we really deep dive into like bringing in an image to be like an eyes on me opportunity. So your kids are following the image all around with you while you're reading it, but then you can also bring in the animated video of the Very Hungry Caterpillar and post it on the side or even on the page. And then you can have hyperlinks to activities about the butterfly life cycle and stuff. It's just really cool. It's really
all of that's in one Cami. Like that's like you just can organize that into one little spot. Like that's one of those things this is turning into the Cami show for a minute, which we're totally fine with. But like that's why we were loving on it so much, and we're talking to Steve about it because like holy smokes, this thing is fantastic. I had to look up the Very Hungry Caterpillar. I had a
that's a little offensive.
Whoa, now. Yep. Sorry, I'll just
no.
Okay.
It sounds like you need to do this presentation with Will.
Dude, I volunteer. I recognize it, the image, but I don't know the story. So
it's the butterfly life cycle, colors and fruits and counting too, all in there with Eric Carl's amazing art. Like, yeah, it's just beautiful.
Yeah, it took me the second you mentioned it. It took me immediately back to the art and like the white book and like vibe. There's like a specific vibe to it. This is it's okay. It was public school. Will, I may have gotten that, but you got a lot of other things. It's very cool. And I will admit, Sophie, with the one little bit more Cammy show thing, I think the thing I was most impressed about when we talked with Steve, and just it's coming out in what you're talking about too, is I do really appreciate you guys in how you put a lot of focus into not just like having a tool, but like connecting with teachers and doing professional development with them. Not everybody does that. And so I think that's just hats off to you and your team. That's cool that you guys are emphasizing that and that focus of not just here's the tool, but also like here we'll work with you, we'll talk with you, we'll work through actual techniques and things that people are doing and looking at from the educational side of things. It's just really cool. I think it's a cool focus that you guys have that can set you apart a little bit. I think it's part of the reason Will and I really dig what you guys are doing at Cammy and the app itself, plus playing around with it. Will and I like technology as well. So as if that was a surprise.
Surprise!
Yeah. Break fourth wall. So now you're Cammy, you're doing all that stuff, but you also have another obsession that I'm very interested to keep talking about in this episode.
The whole point of this episode.
Yeah, I gotta set the stage here for a second, listeners. Okay, so if it isn't clear yet to those listening to the High Tech Podcast, Will does a lot of the guest interactions before we do stuff. Like he's the guy on our email, he's the networking ninja, and so I usually find out about people through Will, and it usually goes like this. It's like a Discord message, right? And it's like, for those of you not paying attention, you're listening to audio, I'm fake typing. This is why you should go to YouTube, because it's awesome. So it's usually like, hey, we got this person who wants to talk about this. And all I get from Will is like, I got a person, they want to talk about digital escape rooms. And I was like, I don't care who they are. Yes. That sounds amazing. And now we've learned we're all three nerds and have a lot more connections than that. But I love this idea. You talked a little bit before we got on that you were so obsessed with digital escape rooms, it got to a point that some of your fellow teachers were like, "Okay, Sophie, we know they exist." But I'm curious, what? First of all, let's describe to the listener here for a second. When you say digital escape room, okay, what is that, right? So let's give me your elevator pitch of like, what is a digital escape room?
A digital escape room is an escape room, but it is all digital.
Nailed it. Perfect.
Nailed it.
Yes. So if you have a scenario, it's presented digitally, and then all the puzzles and the locks are also digital, which opens up the opportunity where it's really low effort on the teacher's part, because you don't have to set locks up, change the lock combinations. You don't have to prep any of the materials for the students to find the mystery book that is a lock and it has a prize, and you don't have to do any of that stuff. It's all online. It's easy reset, because all you have to do is give them the link. Like, that's it. There's no like cutting and printing and laminating. It's really low cost, because even if you buy puzzles, it's all in one situation. You're not buying the bags, the totes, the locks, the keys, or the envelopes, whatever it is. You're not buying any of that stuff, and you don't have to replace any of that stuff if it gets messed up, because it's all digital.
When it gets messed up, because kids, and also
Yep.
It also provides you with a lot more flexibility. So like, you're not just stuck with, if you get the one number combination that's just 4 numbers, all your puzzles then have to be 4 number combinations. Right. But if you're doing it digitally, you can do ciphers and arrows and letters and dots and collars, all that stuff. You could do whatever lock it is.
So many more puzzles available to you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then there's no physically moving around the room if you have students that have difficulties controlling their body. Maybe middle schoolers have to run into each other all the time. You don't have to worry about that. You just sit up your desks, and they work together on their devices. Oh, and it's escape rooms in general have like this whole like self-checking, self-assessing thing. So in general, it's a low effort on teachers, and it's more effort on the students solving and puzzling things out, because it's a self-checking situation. I suggest doing them for review and checking for understanding things. I've not had a successful one happen where the escape room was the instructional tool. It just takes a lot longer, and you don't have time for that. Um, teach it elsewhere, explore elsewhere, check for understanding, and do like the review before the test with an escape room.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? Because you're building that whole environment or that experience, trying to also get instruction inside of it just starts to create an experience that gets confused. Also, them trying to process that live while they're dealing with the escape room component. I can imagine that could
the
become
largest escape room they've ever taken if you ended up actually trying to like do a full unit of instruction or something through escape rooms. I'm thinking of like one actual escape room I participated in where it might have been it was my first. I got so involved in the narrative that I spent probably 15 minutes reading a book that was in the room for clues for anything. I just like, there's got to be something in the book. Like, there's got to be something in this book. And the book eventually was relevant, but not because of anything in the book. But I spent 15 minutes distracted by the fact that, like, well, but this could have an answer.
Could have an answer in it.
Yeah. So, like, meanwhile, Will's party died in the escape room.
You didn't escape. You didn't escape.
Escape room. Now, I'm curious, Sophie, like, talking through this, because Will and I are familiar with some of the idea. Did you, when you first started doing this, did you get like already pre-set up ones? What did you use to do this a little bit? Because I can imagine for the average teacher, that would be the overwhelming thing to think of. It's like, okay, resources and stuff are easier, can reset stuff, but like, whoo, I can barely like open PowerPoint. What is a digital? How do I do that digital escape room?
I went searching for pre-made ones first. I did, because I wanted it to be super easy on the teacher and me, and I wanted to learn from people that already made it. So I went searching for free ones just to play around with them, see how they made them. I went looking for tutorials, and at this time they were still pretty early. Like escape rooms in the classroom was still pretty early on. There wasn't a whole lot out there. There's Breakout EDU, and I just went back to their website after being out of the classroom for a year and a half. It's a completely different website now. I didn't even know where I was going. They've done a whole new thing. But yeah, that's one of the places that I went to and learned a lot about creating escape rooms. But my first digital escape room was not one that I created myself. I used somebody else's. My favorite one is the Escape Classroom, because not only do they have digital escape rooms, they have the physical ones too, and they provide you with all the stuff. You just print it out, cut it out, give it to your kids and stuff. But they like create preview videos and something to play like the week before you do it that also have like a clue in the video, getting kids hyped about it. It's amazing. And then they have like just mystery ones too. They have different versions of this like escape room where you're solving the mystery and figuring out who was the murderer and stuff. But they're also content based, like context clues. So they're doing the hard part, coming up with all the scenarios for you. You're just doing a context clues review with your kids. It was fabulous. And they get all creepy. They wear masks and do voices and stuff. That one is my favorite. I don't work for them, but the Escape Classroom is where I suggest you guys go.
Getting the content itself a good place to be.
Yes. But yeah, so I did that. I went adventuring down a rabbit hole into escape rooms and creating them, and creating physical ones, creating hybrid ones, creating digital ones. And I had some teachers that were all for 100% physical with the physical locks. I created one that was body systems that was 100% physical with like bank bags, because they have the lock built in on them.
Yeah.
It's magical. Those teachers still use it today. And that was like a couple of years ago that I made it for them. And so that was a 7th grade one, but we did a context clues one in 11th grade English, and that one was fun. We did a couple other ones in like a freshman English class that was some English. I don't remember what the purpose of it was, but it was amazing to see the students, because I mean, I taught some of these kids. I taught at the middle school that these kids went up to the high school to, and then I was the coach at the high school. And to see that one student that's like, oh, he's just going to sit there and do nothing, turn into a leader in the group, leading and solving the puzzles. And like, it was amazing to see this transformation. And that wasn't a physical one. But yeah, I saw kids like are collaborating, communicating, working together to solve the problem. They're all huddled around like one screen, and just really into this puzzle that they're trying to solve, this overarching puzzle that they're trying to solve. And that was what I struggled with. I can create digital escape rooms, but coming up with a situation that gets them interested and wanting to solve the problem, that's what I struggled with. Now with ChatGPT, I don't have to worry about that. But
yes.
I was going to say, AI makes that a different world right now. I was thinking just even like the tools that are out there digitally to create your own rooms, and then add in now AI that can help you create some of that content. Like Will and I are messing around with this right now for another thing we're working on in what we're doing. And like, I'm getting to play with like Mid-Journey photo creation right now with AI. And like, I could easily see like, okay, I'm going to create this, you know, maybe not Game of Thrones theme. That might be a little intense, but medieval theme. And you could create backgrounds and things super easily to like create rooms, and literally have like ChatGPT write you the scenario. And for those who haven't played with it, like you can literally do that. Like I've written a D&D game through ChatGPT. It did it for me. It like wrote the whole flow and like how things were. So you could easily do an escape room scenario. Yeah, so there's a lot of power in that, the AI tools to be able to help with this specific type of thing that you'd want to do as an educator.
Yeah, like if we had ChatGPT while I was still a coach, I'd have been busting out escape rooms like crazy, like with really intriguing
Everyone
things.
gets escape rooms.
Everyone gets every standard. Here's your escape room. Like it would have just been, yes.
Oh my gosh. Well, and that's one of those things. When you think about the physical escape rooms, people, if nobody's done one of these or not too familiar, you pay someone to lock you in a room, and you go through any number of puzzles to try and get out of the room. In that one where I spent 15 minutes in the book, why I said that was relevant is the book next to it on the bookshelf. Eventually I got to pull it, and it opened up an extra room that none of us knew was there, and it was super awesome. We did get out of that room and beat the time, but that's the physical experience. Digitally, we're looking at like maybe a lot more reliance on the narrative, the flow of the content, the puzzles themselves. Like in a physical room, like I had the pleasure of like pulling on a book and it unlocked a door, and picking up a sword and reading something on the back of it, right? Like there's the realia that becomes a part of that. But what was that like for you going into the digital context? Did you use images and create things and put stuff in there, or was it like so text heavy?
I like to do a blend, like to have audio, video, images, and then the variety of puzzles, the locks that they got to unlock helped as well. So they were looking for different things. Or even if it was something that I liked to do was, you got a multiple choice question, 4 multiple choice questions. The answers are A, B, C, D. Okay. Then you take those answers and put them into a puzzle that gives you the lock combination. So the task itself is very content based and not necessarily puzzle based, but then you get to take the answers and use those to solve a puzzle. And those were easier for me to do, so that they still got that puzzle solving thing, but we were still very hard on the review of the material.
Task.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So yeah, that was the gist of that. But they're pretty basic to make if you just want to do like a simple, easy one with just like Google Sites and a Google form. That's really.
I was about to say, like, so how do we get started, right? So I've seen them with Google Forms, but what's the relationship of sites? Like, what are we doing?
Well, if you embed the forms on the sites, then you can have more in the site. You can host the scenario in the site. You can host the audio, a video, or a link to a puzzle where they do the puzzle and get the answer over here and then come back and put it in the Google form. So it just hosts the entire thing in one location for you at the teacher. This is your site. Here you go. Give you the first link. You hide all the pages so that the students don't see it. The published version, you can't see those other pages that you've created. So then when the form gives them, good job, you did it, it gives them the link to the next page, the next puzzle. It just is a nice place to put it all together and package it in one place.
That's cool.
I had someone who applied for a job in one of my old teams, literally use, and I think he got the job. Yeah, he got the job. I was at Penn State University, 26 campuses. He was applying for a similar team, different campus. That's why I didn't remember exactly. He used one of these as his presentation, his pedagogical presentation. So it was just a Google form, and it was linear, and it was very text heavy. That's why I was leading into this question. But that meant, for his purposes and with us as his audience, it was very effective. I'm thinking with younger learners, you're going to want more images, more video, more audio. But that site's idea of building the narrative in the site and using something like Google Sites, which is pretty flexible. You can just make as many pages as you want. You've got a lot of architecture. I like how you mentioned you just hide the pages you don't want them to see to get to when they get a direct link. That's all free too, the Google Suite and everything like that. There's no cost. There's some investigation if you're not familiar, but the Google Forms side, easy. I know that. The Google Sites side, maybe you need a little bit more support, or if you've never used it before. I haven't done a lot in Google Sites, but I can imagine it's not as hard because Google's pretty straightforward when it comes to that kind of stuff.
I was even creating sites back in the old Google Sites. This Google Sites is easy.
Yeah.
This Google Sites is easy.
It's an easier tool now. They've
Yes.
optimized it a lot for that type of thing. Now I'm curious. I'm going off script for a second, so we're gonna see if this part gets edited out of the episode or not. Dude. Because Will and I've only played with Cami a little bit. Have you done any escape rooms in Cami itself? Have you played around with doing it in the Cami software, moving around to different places?
We, Steve and I have actually talked about this in detail.
Okay. Yes. Okay. It's not getting edited.
Steve and I have actually talked about this in detail. I've even brought it up to our engineers a few times of what we need to do to make this better for escape rooms. There's just not a lot of demand for it right now. So it's on the list, but it's not a priority. But we have the new Cami questions, and we have the option to do multiple choice, short answer, and drop down. And we want the short answer to have a little extra something in there that only it tells you when it's wrong, like Google Forms has. It tells you when it's wrong, try again, and then when it's right, it gives you a automatic reply.
Yeah.
Immediately, you have a escape room ability just with that little tweak to that tool that we already have immediately, because you can create Cami pages and you have links to the Cami pages, and then you just create a series of Cami pages that link and chain together. So yeah, Steve and I have already talked about this. But
very possible.
Well, if it makes you feel better, you have the high-tech podcast backing. So any Cami engineers listening, if you're listening to the high-tech podcast, you should jump on that.
Let's hook Sophie and team up.
Yeah.
No, we have no sway, but we would love to see that happen. I think that'd be so awesome.
But you can also embed Cami docs inside of Google Sites so that the materials or the things that you're having your kids do could be inside of the Cami document. And then you could use the lock, whatever it is. Honestly, if you're doing a digital escape room, try to have something physical to it, whether it is that they come up to you to check the answer and then you give them the next QR code, because it just increases in the engagement in general. I always tried to have the actual locks in hand, because you will not believe how excited kids get when they get to unlock a lock. It's so simple.
I didn't know how many locks there were in the world until I started doing escape rooms. I'm like, you've got ones you got to do movement. You got ones with ABC and 1, 2, 3, but then you got ones that's positioning. I'm like, dude, locks are fantastic. They're hard. They are hard.
They're amazing. They're amazing. So many different combinations and ways that you can utilize them to, like the directional ones that got the arrows pointing in different ways so that you could do map navigation. You've got the letters that could spell out something. You can do that with a periodic table of elements. It's just so many different things that you can assess with a lock.
Yeah. See, locks aren't all bad, you know? They bring learning and hope sometimes and enjoyment. They're not always bad. We're redeeming locks in this episode. That is the new side goal. Okay, now I'm curious. Those listening are probably, if they're asking questions, or they're probably like now going to find locks. They're like, do I have locks in the house somewhere? I'm curious though. So you mentioned this a little bit, but what impact did you actually see then on the learners doing this? Right, so like your students, what was some of the positive impact or reaction that you saw out of doing this, or you've seen out of other people doing the escape room techniques?
I never actually got to do a digital escape room in my own classroom. I only got to co-teach with it. So I got to see a variety of subjects, a variety of grade levels, and a variety of digital heaviness. So I've seen 100% digital, hybrid, and 100% physical in the classroom. And it really doesn't matter what escape room you do. The kids are just excited to do something other than the normal.
It's fun.
It's fun, especially if you get ones from the escape classroom with like the teaser video at the beginning, and then you take the pictures and post them in the classroom because they escaped. It's just really like a camaraderie thing. They love the competition. It's very low stakes for them because they get to try again and they get to try again and they get to try again. And everyone ends up being a winner. It's just sometimes you get one that gets the Taco Bell meal and the other ones don't, like, because that was a prize one time.
Okay,
right.
I was like, that was incredibly specific, so I'm guessing that actually happened.
Yeah, that was a prize one time. They got a Taco Bell voucher for lunch. It was at high school, so they got to go get lunch. And anyways,
I for that. I'm down. Give me the Crunchwrap Supreme for getting the locks. Let's go.
The kids that you never thought would participate in group work were excited to do this and were starting to pay attention, or you would even see them starting to think, oh, I'm too cool for this, but then they would get caught up in it as it was going on, because people want to solve problems, people want to answer the questions, so they're like, well, wait a second, didn't someone, like, third audio back, didn't he say that he saw some weird gray matter on blah 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 blah, and they start engaging. They are thinking critically, creatively, they're collaborating, they're communicating. There's 4 C's. All right, there, and reviewing materials. And even if they don't know the answer, the team's talking about the answer. And if they didn't know it before they started it, they're picking up on it while they're going through the problem. So it's actually a fantastic review opportunity for the students to work together and pick up on things that they might have missed during the regular instruction.
That's great. Yeah,
you got me sold.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was sold from like the moment we mentioned escape, and then I was like, oh, cool, okay. I'm in escape room. No, well, I think there's an interesting point there in what you're making that I think could be missed without thinking carefully about it, which is this idea that like I've done a bunch of like review games and like, you know, the very popular
Jeopardy.
Kahoot and the, you know, Jeopardy and all those things. But what's interesting about this is you're putting them into these groups that in a scenario where they have to kind of reason and think a little bit more critically than just answering like a question that's up on the board. Right. And so like it's causing more discussion, and honestly, I think would generate a little bit better review where it's not just we're trying to get the answer right or wrong, but like there's going to end up in any escape room scenario I've been in. There's always at some point some discussion about whether this is the right answer or maybe not, or, you know, somebody comes up with something like, yeah, that's totally the right answer, and then they get it wrong and they're still stuck. They still have to work through the right answer instead of going, I think that's right, and then they see a score on the board and they're like, dang it, I wasn't right, next question. Like that forces them to consider it a bit more and look at it. I'm thinking of I haven't done an academic escape rooms, but Will and I and a group of us did a like box escape room at a cabin. It was like a Lord of the Rings theme escape room, and it was quite difficult. And we were, but like there was a lot of discussion, right? You're circled up, you're trying to come up with the solutions, you're trying to work through things. You always have like one or two people, they try for a while and then they're like, oh, I'm done, somebody else can figure this out. But like they eventually come back in and they want to engage with it. So like applying that to the educational sense is really cool. It's getting those discussions going on. If I can only plug one thing, I would say do not play a Lord of the Rings escape room in a cabin in the middle of the woods in the dark. That was slightly terrifying. But other than that, it was fine. We're not traumatized.
Just made the fires bigger, you know?
Yeah, it was totally cool. But I'm just excited about that idea. I hadn't thought about that when we were talking about this beforehand. I just like it's a cool idea. It's a game, but like it actually has some real engagement elements that cause more collaboration and thinking than I think some other scenarios or games could do.
Yeah. And as I was like sort of preparing for this, I was actually thinking about other review games like Kahoot, where like they don't even have to be paying attention to the question. They can just click, 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 and they will still progress through. You can't do that in an escape room. You can't.
Yeah.
I mean, there are too many different combinations for you to try to just keep guessing, and then you're never going to win. And their kids are too competitive for that. Like they can't see that group is already on the second level. Like they can't handle it.
That pushes them, right? Yeah. I would say I've probably done about 10 escape rooms at this point, and we've set a couple records. Like my group, we love doing these things. We do the box ones, like Josh is saying. We've bought a couple of those different ones. We do them around the table.
I have a briefcase in my living room. It's like my friend already did it, and she gave it to me, and I'm just waiting for a night where I have like my friends over. Are you guys frozen?
No. We are too excited. I'm trying to process. So you have an escape room suitcase? Is this what
it's a briefcase right now? It's a briefcase. It's a company, I guess, and you can it's in a briefcase and it has everything that's in it, and it's packaged in different envelopes where you get this one first and you get this one second. My friend Emily and I we do them all the time, and when she's still working for the district, and we would go on conferences together, and we would always go to an escape room wherever we went. And we won all of them. 10 out of 10.
It's not teachers, baby. We know how to do.
She was a middle school science teacher too. We've got a lot in common. Anyways, we're pros. Our husbands just come along, just tag along. We're doing it.
Right. Yep.
Both our husbands are pharmacists. Like her husband's my husband's boss. So like we live the same life. We have two boys. Wow. Like we live the same life.
Just parallel.
She went to work at the district level. I went to work for Cammie. That's the only difference.
The only difference. Okay.
But yeah, so she got this for her friends were coming in for, we have a chocolate festival in our hometown. So her friends were coming in, they were going to the chocolate festival, and then they stayed up and they did this after all the kids went to bed. She said, it's amazing. Here you go. Do it. I don't need it back, because she already escaped from it. She didn't need it back. Yeah. I haven't been able to get into it yet because my kids are like 4 and 6. So life is crazy. But it's still there, and I know it's still there. And like my favorite board game was Clue. I've always had a passion for mystery things like this. But this company, I looked into it, and they can actually just ship you a series of things over a period of time. So, and I can't think of the name of it, but they'll ship you this, and that's the first puzzle. And then you work through it. And then a little bit later, they'll ship you the next one. And then you work through it. And then eventually you end up with the whole thing, trying to solve it all. So it's just really cool.
I am the Futurama gif. Take my money. Just take my money, please. Shut up and take my money. That's the only find this. You thought we were frozen for how excited we were.
For those not watching the video, you need to understand what this looked like, okay? Will and I just had our mouths open in very classic Frozen face modes. And it wasn't that we were frozen. It was that we were too excited trying to process that there's a real suitcase in someone's house for an escape room.
We're gonna stay connected after this. You're gonna find it. I'm gonna get this product, and I will own it myself. I'm very excited.
It's very cool.
I think I remember where it is. My sons might have done something to it, but yeah, I think I remember exactly where it is.
Sophie, this has just been a wonderful adventure. Thank you for joining us for this episode. Thank you for opening up the idea of escape rooms to our audience. I wrote down not only Breakout EDU, but the escaped room, the escape classroom.
The escape classroom.
And the escape classroom is theescapeclassroom.com. I've already pulled them up. Those are great resources if you haven't touched these things for yourselves. I would bet if you reached out to Sophie on any number of the socials that she would probably give an advice or two. Josh and I would absolutely, but we want to make sure these are not something that you can always get into immediately, or if you don't have the itch for the narrative, get ChatGPT to help. But if you're not, there's so many ifs, thens, and buts on this one. So just reach out. The High Tech Podcast is here for you. Breakout EDU is here for you. TheEscapeClassroom.com. Sophie on social. Right? We're going to help folks build all these escape rooms and not only entertain, but engage their students in real learning. I mean, that's the beautiful part of this. It is entertaining. We all have enjoyed it, but like the engagement element of how they get into the learning is just so beautiful. Yeah. Will you come back? I mean, usually folks are like, oh yeah, we'll come. I'm like, I'm ready to have you back on the podcast. We've got so much more we could tap in.
Oh yeah, totally. Just, whenever. I work from home. I'm always here.
I'll find a way to do like a breakout room high tech podcast episode or something. I don't even know how we could do it.
I was just thinking it'd be fun to do a high tech podcast escape room. I don't know what we would
do it on Twitch or something. I don't even know.
Or or you can come to Will's house at
Make sure you bring the briefcase.
Yeah. If he's in Pennsylvania, I could get there in like 7 hours.
It depends on where you are in West Virginia. Exactly. It's triangulation.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. We're going to wrap the episode here in just a second, but we really appreciate you spending the time with us today, Sophie.
It's been fun.
I wanted to come back dramatically, like through my camera, like do something with panache, but I'm just going to say we escaped that. We didn't need to escape that interview, but we are the outro.
We should probably work on language. We're trying to work the escape room thing in, and now
I just like to say escape, and it's just not fitting everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, like, it's a thing.
We're not escaping you, Sophie. Sorry. We love that episode. Yeah. We love that interview. That was
you
great.
Should come back, and we should do a high-tech podcast escape room.
Gotta figure out how to do this.
Yeah, I don't know how we're going to do this. Interactive episode, maybe?
I love it.
Yeah, I love that idea. We're just on ideas right now. If you also
like
ideas, hit us up and then tell us.
Josh is going to figure out how to do them. Hit us up at hightechpod.us.
Exactly. No, so like back to the escape room, back to Sophie's conversation. It shouldn't be an epiphany moment for me, but I think really the conversation with Sophie that for me was so helpful was realizing how escape rooms naturally force critical thinking and problem solving in a way other like review games don't, right? So like if you're looking at why should I do an escape room, not just because it's flashy and has some panaz or nash, whatever Will said 5 seconds ago, but because it in of itself forces conversation, collaboration, and problem solving in a way that not many other games do, right? So like we're not trying to bash Kahoot, right? Kahoot is a helpful tool. I've used it before. I do hate your music. Sorry, Kahoot.
Thank you.
That's a hot take in the High Tech Podcast, and it's not that hot of a take. It's truth. But there is this thing, and Sophie mentioned it too, which is that like you can do those review quizzes, but like you can progress while still getting the answer wrong. An escape room forces you and forces the group of students that you put together to actually get the question right. And it gives them this low stakes way of being wrong and trying again with an objective in mind that's not just getting the right answer, but like competing against your fellow students and maybe getting to Taco Bell, although I'd probably do a different prize. I didn't want to mention that, Sophie, while you're here, but sorry.
Love Taco Bell.
Yeah, that's
Don't you
fine.
Mac on my Taco Bell.
You also like Hawaiian pizza too, and that's wrong. So
yeah, because I have taste, buddy. I have taste.
One might argue lack of taste.
one of the like but the point that you're getting around to with that is like, if you think about the practical experience of Jeopardy, a Jeopardy quiz for knowledge, right?
Yeah.
I've built plenty of these. I've built probably a
I've
dozen
done 'em.
Jeopardy assessments for faculty and stuff like that over time.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a game. Yes, it's a little more fun than just standing there answering questions, kind of. But like, if there's a victory, if there's a reason to the points and all that stuff, it's just to have more points. Like,
Yeah.
there's no I think narrative, there's no environment to the actual experience that pulls you in and raptures you with it. If you love Jeopardy, maybe, but with an escape room, if you can't figure out the puzzle, there is a frustration level. I mean, you have to be careful with these. That's why you don't want to make them too hard. But like, if you can't figure out the puzzle, it's like, I need to get to the next room, like, with everybody else, or I want to make sure that we're not left behind if the other teams get ahead of us. Or there's a certain, like, just natural curiosity, motivation, engagement to figuring out puzzles and trying to get through that many people, not all, but many people engage with, while Jeopardy is literally like, who can get the most points. Like, there's nothing to that makes it any more valuable than just doing a regular old quiz review. Let me go over question 1. Question 1's answer is, let me go over question 2. Question 2's answer is, like, you may as well just do that, besides making a fancy graphic and keeping your instructional designers employed. So the escape rooms, I think Josh and I, having done escape rooms, seen the digital ones, Sophie's experience and testimony to how effective they were at engaging the students, like, I see the value. My thing, and I would expect many faculty, many instructors would see the value. I suspect the biggest constraint is, how do I make these?
Yeah.
You know, when you think about the digital side, I really hope you took to heart the fact that Sophie offered you 2 tools that work really well together. They're free and they're easy to use. Google Sites, Google Forms. But she talked about her Dr. Deb, right? Dr. Deb was a low-tech instructor. And so even a moderate tech instructor may take on the sites and the forms by themselves and figure it out. But a low-tech instructor is just going to stay away. That's where, I mean, thank you, Sophie. You hit all the levels here. That's where, if you're the low-tech instructor and you don't want to make it yourself, go to breakoutedu.com. Go to what was it? Dang it. The escapeclassroom.com, right? Like, there are resources out here that have done these things, that you can just purchase them or download them or find templates and start using them yourself. So I think we agree that it's effective, it's functionally worth doing, and the barrier, which is knowing how to make one yourself, is still something you can conquer with assistance from the community that's out here. So take it on.
There's resources out there.
So worth it.
There's most likely templates and other options too. Like we talked about briefly with Sophie after the interview, that in episode 100, when we talked about Canva, one of our guests on there shared that she set up escape rooms through Canva. And I know since then I've found some templates in Canva that you can utilize. So like, there's different levels to how you want to engage with this. You want to make a perfectly custom one, you can learn how to do it. You can do it. If you want to get something from one of these resources that can be pre-used, you want to find somewhere in the middle. There's a lot of options out there, especially now. I like that Sophie highlighted that when she first started doing this was different. Escape rooms were newer. Like they haven't been around for forever. I mean, people have been escaping rooms forever, but we didn't pay for it. Somebody was like, well, what if we just made people pay for that? But the resources are there that you can play around. You can do stuff. You can even do it in I was thinking about this before. You can do it in your LMS. Like if this is something you're willing to mess around with and want to do, or you have a team like that can help structural technologists or designers who can help you out with this. There's ways to do this. Like I could do this in Canvas, right? Like, so our LMS is Canvas. I could do this with certain pages and quizzing and stuff like that you could do. The hardest part would just be coming up with how the questions connect with clues and stuff, right? But like, there's ways to do that. And you could use other examples people made to be a starting place for you. And again, we advertise in the podcast all the time. This simple teaching idea. Start off small. Get something from somebody else. Do a template from somebody else. If you like it, if you like the way you're working at it, next year maybe build out a slightly more custom one, that you want to do it.
Right.
Maybe the year after that, you log into this tool, ChatGPT, that people have been talking about for forever, and you have it generate some things. You come up with some images, right? There's options out there for you, and you don't have to start with everything right away. You could build up to doing these cool things with escape rooms, but I think it's worth trying it out instead of just doing a boring review in class. Or quite frankly, another Jeopardy game. Half your students don't even know what Jeopardy is anymore. So like, just let's try switching it up a little bit. Yeah. I don't know. There's that one half.
Sophie said from her experience, like, that she ended up not doing this as like a summative assessment, that she didn't build it to, like, she would use these as reviews. And I like that purpose for it. But that's like actually maybe the biggest encouragement here is like, if you're thinking about these, like, think about one unit to do it for, or one lesson. Like, you don't have to think about how you're going to integrate it into your entire classroom, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Figure one out, take a shot at it. It's going to work out all right. I bet
now,
you.
If you really want to take a challenge, High Tech Podcast Challenge right here, you make your entire course one single escape room. I don't know how you're going to do this, but I'm just joking. That's a horrible idea.
Wow. I mean, I just was thinking through how you do that, and I'm like, could be fun. Could be
from day one, you lock the students in the room, and then
no. Josh did not say that. I strike that from the record. I rebuke that in the name of all things educational. Everyone, Josh has a sense of humor. He did not say lock your students in the room.
It's college age. It's fine.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
that's what I was talking.
So much better. This has been episode 118. Thank you, Sophie, for taking the time with us. Thank you for lending your expertise and just becoming a new friend. We love friends at this podcast. As always, you can make sure to connect with us because of this episode, because of Sophie, get in touch with social, etc. Through Twitter and YouTube. We are at High Tech Podcast. If you're on Instagram, some of the other tools, Threads, I think, is High Tech Pod. Our website is hightechpod.us, and our email is inbox@hightechpod.us. Please reach out to us, DM us, Slack us, message us, something us, smoke signal us, send a bird with a letter on its foot. I forget what that's called. Snail mail. I'll give you Josh's address.
Pigeon? Are you talking about pigeons?
Pigeon carrier.
Yeah. Carrier
but
pigeon.
While you're thinking about all the carrier pigeon, see, thank you. There's a term for it.
Bird with message.
A bird with a thing on its leg. I showed it for those who were watching.
Exactly,
guys. We're tired. We're so tired. While you're subscribing to us, engaging with us, finding us in those spaces, and messaging us people you think we should talk to, or getting in our inbox because you want us to talk to you, get ready for episode 119, which is next week. We're going to be actually opening up a topic that I really enjoy. I've been using this tool for a long time. I came in touch with it because of my work in K-12 and some of my colleagues in that space. It's a tool called Common Sense. If you're not familiar with this, commonsense.org, check it out. Just go get ready for it. Get used to using this. We're going to have two ambassadors from commonsense.org on the show, Erica and Tina, and we're going to discuss what this tool can do for you, how it can help you protect your students. They look into security, they look into privacy, they look into emotional readiness, they look into age appropriateness. There's a lot of things that goes into commonsense.org. They are meant to be a product to help you make sure the content, the tools you're using in your classroom are effective and appropriate for your students. So I'm very excited, honestly, for 119. It's actually kind of like a PSA episode. That's how I'm kind of approaching next week's or next episode's time with you. So find us on all the socials. Look forward to 119 with Tina and Erica. Thank you again, Sophie. And until next time, thank you for joining us for another week as we continue to learn what it looks like to harness technology in a room, escaping a room, digitally, virtually, physically, and all that good stuff. Thank you until next time. See ya.
See ya.